Hello everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. My name is Hannah and I'm one of the speech and language therapists working in Ealing. Today I'm going to talk to you about shy, quiet and anxious talkers. We're really happy to have you with us today and I hope you enjoy the video. So to start with, when we're talking about this topic, we need to think about how we feel. So what I want you to do to start with is I want you to think about what are you scared of and how does this make you feel? So maybe you might be scared of crowds, or you might be scared of dogs, or you might be scared of spiders or something else. But I want you to think about how does that make you feel? Whatever you're scared of, what is your body feeling? What's your brain feeling when you see or do that thing? How does it make you feel? I just want you to take a moment to think about that now. And then once you've thought about it, I want you to write those things down and just think about how they make you feel. So some ideas that you might have written down are maybe you start to feel anxious, like the adrenaline starts to pump around your body. Maybe you might start shaking. Maybe your palms might feel sweaty and hot and clammy. Maybe your heart might start beating a bit faster. Maybe your body starts to heat up and you start to feel hot and anxious. And maybe you might feel like you might want to run away. It's different feelings for everyone, but we know that those are some similarities of how people feel when they feel scared or anxious. And I want you to remember that and to remember how you might feel if you feel scared or anxious, because that's a really important thing for us to remember when we're talking about selective mutism or situational mutism, because we need to remember what the feeling of a phobia or a fear is in order to understand what these children and young people are going through. So hold that thought for the whole of this presentation, okay? Okay, so what we're going to cover in this video is we're going to cover the difference between shy and anxious talkers and selective mutism. We're going to understand ways to help children communicate in the nursery and early years setting, and then give you guys some information about where to access some more support and more information. So first of all, what is the difference between shy and anxious talkers? So this is a really important thing to remember and to understand to start with. So we know that some children are happy to communicate at home, but they might not be as communicative at nursery or at school. So those children could be shy or they could be anxious, and we need to know how to tell the difference. So for shy children, we know that they need some time to warm up, but their level of shyness will reduce with time without any intervention and without any other support. Their shyness will reduce. They will also happily respond if someone starts talking to them. So if someone asks them a question or points out something to them, they will gladly respond because someone has started conversation with them. And their shyness rarely impacts on their educational progress. So just because a child is shy, it probably won't be impacting on their educational progress. They will probably be getting the same marks or the same grades as you would expect them to be getting. An important thing to note about shy children is that their shyness could become a phobia of talking or could become an anxiety about talking if the right support is not put in place, which we're going to talk about later. So whereas anxious talkers are very confident and very comfortable talking when there is no need to talk or when they're in their comfort zone. For example, when they're at home. So when they're at home, they might be really happy and really eager to share information and to talk. Whereas when they are outside of their comfort zone, like at nursery or out and about, they are not as confident and not as willing to share that information or things or just talk. They also then might appear frozen or slow to respond, and they might have an unresponsive manner. They might have a rigid body posture. They might be very clingy with their parents when entering to their setting. They will be displaying persistent anxiety about talking in different situations. So you're noticing a difference already there, aren't you? So shy children are warming up. Anxious talkers are not warming up. You're still seeing that there's still anxiety, even though you've maybe put in place some strategies and support for them. And therefore, their anxiety about talking, their anxiousness is not reducing with time. So shy children, their level of shyness is reducing with time. They're becoming more confident as they warm up with people. But anxious talkers, it's not reducing. They're still having that underlying phobia of talking, and it's their difficulties are not reducing with time. And the last thing is that anxious talkers, it will be impacting on their educational and social progress. So these children might be finding it especially hard to make friends, or especially hard to access the curriculum or do activities in the classroom that they're wanting to be doing, because of their anxiety around talking. So the key difference between shy and anxious talkers is that shyness is not affecting the child's ability to function. So if a child has anxiety around talking, it is affecting their ability to function. But shyness does not. So if it is affecting their ability to function, then this can be called speaking anxiety, or in some cases, selective mutism or situational mutism. So we know that if a child's their ability to function is being impacted, then we can call that speaking anxiety or selective mutism. And let's have a look now at some facts about that. So selective mutism or situational mutism is a consistent failure to speak in specific social situations where speaking is expected despite speaking in other situations. And that is the definition that is outlined in the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, the 5th edition, the DSM-5, which is the standard classification of mental health disorders in the United States, which is what we use as reference in the UK as well. So the most important thing to highlight there is that it is a consistent failure to speak in specific social situations. So that means that the child or young person is speaking in some situations, but not speaking in others. So that is why us knowing the difference between shy and anxious is so important. So we know that it is a phobia of talking. So it is a fear of talking. So remember at the beginning, we got you to think about what was your phobia and how did you feel about that? So this is like that. This is a phobia of talking to these children. So all those feelings that you had before about your phobia, that is how they feel when they are asked to talk or talking is required of them. And in order to have a diagnosis of selective mutism or speaking anxiety, then it needs to have lasted for 1 month, not including the first month in a new setting. So that's why it's really important when you have a new child in your setting to monitor them for the first month, see how they're getting on. And then if after the first 2 months, you maybe notice that, oh, they haven't warmed up, or I'm still a bit worried about them, then you need to be thinking about what you can do to support them. And we know that selective mutism or situational mutism has, as I said before, a significant impact on educational and or social progress or their social communication. So it might be difficulties making friends or difficulties instigating conversations with their peers. And we know it is not due to a lack of knowledge or comfort with the required language. So it's not because they have difficulties forming sentences or difficulties understanding language. It's because of the phobia of talking that they are presenting this way. And it is not due to a communication difficulty. So it is not due to them having speech and language difficulties or having difficulties learning or understanding language. It is a phobia of talking, and it is therefore we know that they are finding it hard in one situation but not in others, so in specific social situations. Whereas if a child had a communication difficulty, they'd be finding it hard across all of the settings. Okay, so what's really important to remember on this slide is that it is a phobia of talking. And if you are a practitioner working in a setting, the child's difficulties will have lasted for 1 month, not including the first month if it's a new setting. So if you're in a new setting, you want to be looking at about the 6-week to 2-month mark before thinking about what to do. And it will be having an impact on their educational and or social progress. Okay. And so we know that children with selective mutism, it is a phobia. So we know that the feelings of when you feel scared or when you feel like you've got a phobia, that is how they are feeling in this situation. They really want to speak, but they're not able to. They want to join in the conversation. They want to get the words out, but they are so scared that they cannot. They become so scared of the act of people speaking and hearing their voice that then leads them to becoming increasingly aware of any form of communication that could lead to an expectation to speak. So then that makes them learn to avoid the phobia, avoid the fear, avoid the distress by avoiding communication in certain situations. It's exactly the same as any of our phobias. So for example, if I see a spider, I know that I'm scared of that, and therefore my body goes into adrenaline pumping, hands getting sweaty, heart beating faster, and I want to run away. I want to avoid that situation. So I learn to avoid the spiders, avoid my phobia, because I don't want to have those feelings again. So that is exactly what these children and young people are feeling. Okay, so we need to remember for them is that the difference between my phobia of spiders and these children's phobia of talking is that we kind of try and avoid our phobias, but in our day-to-day lives, it's really hard to avoid talking. So that then makes this phobia even stronger because they have the expectation to do it all of the time. But rest assured, we can do something about it. We can support it, and that is why we're here today, isn't it? That's why hopefully you're listening to this video, watching this video. Okay, so the key points here is it's a phobia. They want to speak, but they're unable to, and it kind of becomes a bit of a vicious circle going round and round because they're scared of the act of speaking and of people hearing their voice. So then they learn to avoid that because they don't want to have that feeling in their body of the phobia, the panic sensation that they might feel. So that's really important to remember when you're explaining it to people, because they might not understand that and they might think they're being difficult or tricky or naughty or rude. So we need to be able to explain that to them, that they're not, and it's a phobia of talking. So another key thing to remember is people often ask about selective mutism, or is it the silent period if a child is bilingual? So we know that some children who are learning English as an additional language go through a non-verbal period. And sometimes we call this the silent period. And this is the time when they're getting used to an unfamiliar language and an unfamiliar setting. And they sometimes need a period of watching, listening and learning to start using the new language. So we know that the silent period can last anywhere between a few days to a year, but we know that it's usually less than 6 months, and it's usually less than 6 months. So if a child has not spoken in some settings has spoken in some settings but not in others for more than a month, again, not including the first month in a new setting, we need to use the same support strategies that we would use for selective mutism, okay? Because we need to be putting in place all the right support in order to ensure that the child doesn't develop selective mutism or doesn't become an anxious talker, okay? So an important thing to remember is if you have children who are bilingual in your nursery, to keep watching those children, keep monitoring those children. And if the child has not spoken in the setting for more than a month, not including the first month, you need to put some strategies in place, okay? It doesn't matter that the bilingualism silent period might last up to 6 months or up to a year in some cases. We need to put those strategies in place if the child hasn't spoken in the setting for more than a month. That's really, really important to remember. We definitely don't want to be waiting longer than a month to put any of the strategies in place. Okay, so another question that people ask is what causes selective mutism? And parents might often ask this, or staff might often ask this because they want to see if they can help or find out the reason why these things are happening. So what we know is there's no single cause, nobody is to blame, nobody has caused the child's selective mutism. So that's really important to remind everybody involved with working with the child that nobody has caused it, it is nobody's fault. What we know is it is a combination of genetic and environmental factors, which are different for each child. So for some children, selective mutism or anxiety around talking might run in families, or there might have been an incident or starting a new school or something that might have happened to the child that might make them more likely to develop shyness and then more likely to develop selective mutism. But the important thing to remember is that it is a combination of lots and lots of different things which are different for each child. And we actually might never know why that young person or child has developed selective mutism, because it is unlikely that we will ever pinpoint a single cause. So that's really important to remember, as often people are worried about that and worried that they might have caused it. So people haven't caused it, nobody is to blame, and therefore we can all support each other and support the child to overcome their selective mutism together. So before we go on to strategies, now we have done information about selective mutism, I would like you at home to have a think about what we have just learnt. So if you are a parent watching this video, I would like you to describe what selective mutism or situational mutism is to a relative. So what would you say to somebody, maybe a distant relative who's never spoken to your child before? How would you describe it to them? And if you are someone who works in education, I would like you to describe what selective mutism to a colleague. How would you describe it to somebody in the staff room? So I want you to pause the video now and write down, or just practice saying what you might say. It's really important. Okay, I'll let you do that now. Okay, so hopefully you've written down, if you're a parent, you've written down you're describing selective mutism, and if you're working in education, you've written down how you describe it to a colleague. So for parents, let's go through some of the key things that I hope you've got written down. So I would definitely be wanting to say that it's a phobia and that my child is scared of talking. It's not that they don't want to talk, it's that they're scared of it and that it's not their choice. And I would therefore describe my phobias or the relatives' phobias and ask them to think about how they feel when they are scared, and that is how my child feels when they are required to talk or they are in a situation that needs them to talk. So I would be highlighting a phobia and what the phobias are and how it makes them feel and relating that back to my child. And you've probably got some other great points as well. And then for the education staff, I would also wanting to be describing it as a phobia and the phobias, and talking about how phobias make us feel, and that it is not a choice. It is not the child being naughty or difficult or unresponsive, and that they are scared of talking, and we need to do our best to help them overcome it, help them overcome their phobia, and it is not a choice. So those two answers are actually very similar, aren't they? But hopefully you've got those things written down. If not, feel free to go back on the video and have a look about how you might describe it. One other point that you might want to add in there is the situational element of selective mutism. So that's, I guess, particularly important for the education staff, that the child might talk in certain situations when they feel more comfortable. So at home, the child is doing lots of talking, but in our setting, they're not doing as much talking because of the phobia. And that's where it also helps to refer to it, I think, sometimes as situational mutism, because it's in different situations that the child is struggling with their talking because of the phobia of talking. So I guess those are two key things I'd be wanting to talk about: the phobia and the situational element of it, and the different situations which the child is finding hard. Hopefully you've got those things written down. If not, as I said, feel free to go back and have a look and recap what we've done, so you're really confident about describing it to people. So now we're going to look at how you can help children in the early years and in primary school to support selective mutism. So the principles that we use all fall under the ABC. So A is reducing the student's anxiety. B is building their confidence and self-esteem. And then C is creating many comfortable opportunities for the student to participate in a range of settings. So we're going to go through each of those now and how you can do it. So for A, reducing anxiety, we've made some do's and don'ts. And these are really important to share with as many people as possible who work with the child, all the way from the lollipop lady outside the school to the dinner ladies, to the playground assistants, to the teaching assistants, to the head teacher, to the canteen staff. Everybody should know this information. So the first thing is, be calm when you're talking to the child. Be open about talking being difficult for them. Tell them that it's okay. Use comments to say what you are doing. So when you are commenting, you might be describing what you are doing rather than asking lots of direct questions. So we don't want to be asking lots of questions to the child. Instead, we want to be commenting and describing what we are doing. So for example, I'm playing with the dolls. You're playing with the dolls too. I wonder if you like dolls. So I'm commenting to describe what I'm doing rather than asking direct questions. I'm encouraging all means of communication. So it doesn't matter if the child is communicating by nodding, pointing, showing me things, pictures, drawing, writing, typing. It doesn't matter, whichever method or whichever way they want to talk to us, that is okay, and we can accept that way of talking. So don't ignore that method of communication, and don't say that the child needs to use their words. So we need to accept any form of communication for the child. It doesn't matter if they don't use words with us. All that matters is that we are supporting and encouraging any means of communication possible. And when you're talking with the child, use pictures, toys, or games to reduce the need for the child to look at you. So by having an object that you can share, that reduces the pressure on the child to look at you and makes them feel less stressed, because you can look at a joint object together. So if you're doing games and things together, have an object that you both can look at or both can interact with. And then do strengthen the links between home and school. So try and cross the boundaries, try and invite the parents into nursery, or bring the child's favourite toy into nursery, or invite the parent to come sit in nursery for 5 minutes at the end or the beginning of the day, or talking to the parent at the end of the day in the nursery setting with the child there. It's really important that the child sees strong and good links between home and school so that we are joining those two settings together, joining the boundaries together. So think about how you could include the parent in the child's nursery journey as much as possible. So then our don'ts. Don't overreact if the child does communicate or talk. Don't ask the child why they're not talking or joining in. Don't pressurize the child to talk or to look at you. And don't ignore their chosen method of communication. So we don't need them to use their words, remember. We accept any form of communication to them. Any form of communication is okay. And don't work in isolation. Keep talking to the parents, keep talking to the different people who are working with the child. Everyone needs to be talking in order for the child to make progress and improve. So definitely make those strong links between home and school. That's really, really important. So those are our top do's and don'ts. As you can see, there's quite a lot and too much to say. So feel free to have another read of those. So that's our A, reducing the anxiety. So now let's think about the letter B, which stands for building confidence and self-esteem, and how you can do that with these children. So some of the ideas that we've come up with are, if you are a practitioner, then giving the child jobs in class that they can do that are non-verbal, that don't require any talking involved with them. They can do things without talking, like carrying things, giving out things, showing someone where they can hang their coat. And if you are a parent, then you can do this at home too, by showing you non-verbal things and encouraging them about things that don't encourage talking, like playing an instrument or how to care for a pet, or if you're a teacher, how to showing someone where to go at the start of the school day, or where to hang their coat. So giving them jobs and promoting things and encouraging things that do not necessarily require talking are a really good idea for building confidence. Also, letting the child know, both if you're a parent and a practitioner, that it is okay to make mistakes, and mistakes are part of learning, and that is how we learn. So if you are a parent, saying things like, oh, that was really hard for me, but I'm really glad I powered through and did it, or oh, next time I'll learn to do the jar tighter, or next time I'll learn to do this. I'm getting there. Just saying those phrases to children lets them know that making mistakes is okay, and it is part of their learning, and they will get there with those things. And in the classroom, having a culture that it is okay to make a mistake, and children aren't told off for making mistakes. In fact, they're praised for making mistakes, because that shows that they're learning and that they're developing their learning. At home and at school, praising the child for making an effort rather than just the successes of things. So again, it's really important that there is a culture in school and at home that the child is praised for trying and making an effort rather than just the success, because often our children with speaking anxiety or selective mutism might not get success with their talking, but they might get success or might try and make an effort and try in other things. So praising them for things rather than just praising them for the success is a really good idea. So, and being specific in your praise about that. So, oh, I really like the way you coloured that in. That is really neat and tidy, or that's really in the lines. Or I really like the way you tried to help making that cake. I know it was really hard for you, but you helped me and you tried. Rather than just praising for success. And like at home, you could have like a wow chart or some kind of reward chart that praises for success rather than, or praises for trying things, sorry, rather than just success. And the same with the following point about doing things with your child or with the child rather than for the child. So you could help them do the first few steps of something rather than doing the whole thing for them. So like putting their coat on, you could do the first step and they could do the next few steps, or opening a packet and letting them do the rest, or you doing a bit of making the sandwich or making the cake and them doing the next few steps. And a nice idea, like I said before, is like a wow board or a praise board or a trying board at home. and modelling that we praise trying rather than just the success. So they could get a sticker or a reward or some kind of praise for working really hard on their spelling, and everyone in the family could be involved. Like, I get a reward for working really hard on my whatever I'm doing. So doing things with them rather than for them is a really good way of building confidence, and praising their effort in the doing of those small things that you will do with them rather than for them. And then making tasks achievable. So like we said before, so giving them an example, giving them a role in a non-verbal game, rather than just expecting them to talk, so that they can participate successfully. So thinking about breaking down the tasks in the classroom to make sure that the child can participate. So giving them something that they could point, or that they could show, or they could nod, rather than just always relying on the spoken word. And then if you are a practitioner as well, making sure that all the children in the class have access to the toilet, to drinking water and to first aid without having to ask. So a good way of doing this is having a reminder on your visual timetable that the children need to go to the toilet at certain points, or that all children are escorted to the toilet at the same time. So all the children go to the toilet at break time and all the children go to the toilet before lunch, so that the child with speaking anxiety or selective mutism doesn't have to ask, or doesn't have to have that stress on them, that they know that everyone does it at one go. And the same thing with drinking. Could all children be escorted to the drinking fountain, or all children be reminded or prompted to have a drink at the same time, so that everyone has those opportunities at the same time? And the same thing with first aid, or all children check, is everyone okay? Does everyone have a problem? And checking at regular intervals in the school day. And then for parents as well, some other good ideas to build confidence and self-esteem are showing your child that it's okay not to know an answer. And this is good for practitioners as well. So showing them that it's okay not to know, recognizing that by you saying, I don't know the answer to that, let me find out, or it's okay to say I don't know. And also recognizing with them that it's okay to be worried, and that you, as parents and practitioners, a really good way of doing that to build their confidence is to recognize and labeling when the child is feeling worried, and that talking to them about that, and that they will learn to talk to that worry and control it. So labeling that for them by saying things like, you feel worried because you've never done this before, or you feel worried because you've never done this on your own. I know that it feels scary right now, but after a while, that you will see that nothing bad will happen, and that it will be okay, and that the worry will stop bothering you. And it's a really good idea to build their confidence as parents by letting them know how brave they are every time that they've conquered that worry, or every time that they've been brave enough to face it. Remind them of that. Remind them of how powerful and brave they have been. Another way to build confidence for parents is to be confident yourself with your child. So your child will be checking how you are feeling and how you are looking. So make sure that your facial expression and your body language and your outside persona is confident, even if on the inside you're really worried and you're really anxious about them going to this situation or being involved in this. So show them that you are confident, show them that you are happy, and they will reflect that. So even if you're not feeling confident, show that on your outside persona, because that will be really important for the child. So you show confidence and they will show confidence too. Also, for parents, one last thing to build confidence at home is to get involved in as many physical challenges as possible. So by doing physical activity and physical tasks, it shows to the child that it is possible to conquer anything through sheer determination. So whether that be running, or whether that be jumping, or doing different types of exercise, we all know that we can do that through sheer determination. So that's a really good way of building confidence with your child as well at home. So those are some examples for the B, for building confidence and self-esteem. Let's now have a look at the C. So C is all about creating comfortable opportunities. So you've done your A, you've done your B, and now we're on to C, creating comfortable opportunities. So at school, that might be doing things like pairing the child up with a friend for playtime. So we know that playtime is a really stressful time for the children because they feel anxious about approaching anyone, they feel scared. So by pairing a child up, they automatically have a buddy, they automatically have someone to play with. So pairing them up at playtime is a really good idea. And then parents could also invite the same child or children to play at home. So if parents find out who your child might have been buddied up with at school, and you could invite those children to play at home, or you could walk home with them, or you could play in the park with them after school. That's a really good way of creating a comfortable opportunity. And then parents can also come to school early or come to school for the last bit of the day to join in playing with the child and create a positive experience. And that's a really nice thing to do because it shows the child that the parent is comfortable in the nursery or the school environment, and therefore they can be comfortable and confident too. So that's a really nice thing to do, and that can literally just be for 10-15 minutes, the last part of the morning, the first part of the morning, any part of the morning that is possible, for the parent to come and join in playing or just sitting and watching and seeing what's going on. That's a really nice idea to get the child more comfortable in the nursery setting. Also, if you are a practitioner, asking parents about the child's interests so they can then be included in the nursery planning, or the child can bring one of those interests into school. For example, if they like animals, could they bring in their animals and play with them at nursery? So you're making the links between home and nursery, and then fostering and building on the child's interests in the nursery setting. Also in nursery, doing lots of whole class activities where things can be done in unison is a really nice idea to build confidence and create comfortable opportunities. So that might be things where the child can sing and dance in unison, where there's no expectation to talk or participate. They can if they want to. So lots of the classes I know do movement activities together, or do a song together at the beginning of the day, or repeat words in unison together. And that's a nice idea to reduce the pressure and create more of a comfortable opportunity. Other things that parents can do as well is thinking about creating comfortable opportunities when you're out and about. So your child might find it hard to speak in public or speak to different people that they're meeting, or they might find it hard to speak in a restaurant or in a shop. So think about how you could make that opportunity more comfortable for the child. So for example, if you were in a restaurant, could the child point to what they want rather than you saying it for them? Or if you were in a shop, could they point to what they want rather than saying it? So think about how you could use your child's non-verbal communication in order to create a comfortable opportunity to enable them to do something rather than you do it for them. So rather than you order for them, or rather than you show the shop assistant what you want, can they do that in a non-verbal way, using pointing or using pictures, or showing somebody what they want? Another thing, as I know this is everyone's doing this right now, is video calls. So could the child be part of the video call with your family or with whoever by waving on the call? They don't have to do any talking, they could just wave. Or could they be on the call if the video is turned off? Or could they send a voice note rather than have a telephone call with somebody? So having a think about adapting the situations that require your child to talk. And is there a way of them being able to do it in a non-verbal way, through pointing, through writing things down, through nodding, or through showing you things? And then thinking about making sure they still have those same opportunities as their friends. So if they are invited to a party, or they're invited to something which you know they might feel anxious about, but you know they want to go, then think about how could you adapt that to be more comfortable for them. So could they go to the first half of the party, or the first 5 minutes? Or could they go and give their present to the child whose party it is and then leave? So they have done the party, they just haven't done the whole thing, or they haven't done the bit that's going to make them feel really stressed and anxious. So it's all about giving them the opportunity to do something rather than doing it for them, or rather than not letting them do that thing, as it were. And then if you are like socializing with other people, or your child is seeing other people, letting those people know about your child's difficulties before your child sees them, and then letting your child know that you've done that, and that's okay. So talking to the person about speaking anxiety or selective mutism, and letting them know how to interact with your child and what is going to be useful for them, so that your child is not being rude, not being silly, and this is an anxiety, this is caused by a phobia, and that, you know, giving the advice that no one should put pressure on them to talk, no one should persuade them, there should be no negative comments, no expectation to say hello or please or thank you. And then, so you've said that to the person whose house you're going around, or whose house you're socializing at, and then you can say to your child that you have done that, and that you have let them know that everyone there knows about the difficulties, and knows then is not going to be putting any pressure on your child to speak, and the expectation is they just go there and have a good time, and there's no expectation to speak. They can if they want to, but they don't have to. So that's a really good way of creating a comfortable opportunity for your child. And then at school, a really important thing to do is to allocate a key person to build a relationship with the child. So someone who they trust and know, and who they see on a regular basis. So it needs to be someone who they see often. There's no point in it being someone who they don't know. And then that key person can be with the child and do activities of low pressure, fun, non-verbal games where there is no pressure to speak on a daily basis. So that might be things like jigsaws, Play-Doh, fishing, turn taking. And through doing that, the key person can build a relationship up with the child, and therefore the child will feel more comfortable in the nursery or the school setting because they have got that relationship with a key person. And then you can then do some further activities with the child to build their confidence talking, but you have to have that relationship first. So it's really important to do that first, to get a key person and to do some daily low pressure non-verbal games where there's no pressure to speak. That's really important. Okay, so that's our ABC. Now let's think about when the child is more relaxed. When you notice that the child is more relaxed in your setting, you can be providing the opportunity to speak rather than making demands. So you notice I used that phrase earlier. So phrases like, I wonder if, or I wonder if you like this, or I wonder what you're doing, or I wonder phrases are very good because they give the child the opportunity to talk rather than making a demand. And then thinking about if the child doesn't reply, and that's completely okay. If the child doesn't reply, leave a little pause, see if they can reply. And then if not, carry on that conversation, move on that conversation. So providing the opportunity through I wonder questions or statements or comments that the child can respond to if they want to, but they don't have to. And then when the child is gesturing or using their non-verbal communication, like nodding or pointing or pulling, I want you to talk back to them as if they have spoken to you. So that is really important because then that shows to the child that you are accepting of all means of communication and that you are carrying on the conversation as if they have spoken to you. That's really, really important. And you can support the child to answer questions by giving them a choice. So, for example, you could say, have you drawn apples or bananas? Give them a smile, wait 5 seconds for them to answer. And if they don't, then move the conversation on in a positive way, like, they look tasty, or your drawing's very neat, and move it on. So when you ask them a question by giving them a choice. That's a closed question or a forced question. Wait 5 seconds. And then if they don't answer, that is totally okay. Move that conversation on. So that's how you can start to include questions when you're working with these children, by giving them a choice waiting 5 seconds, and then moving on. That's a really good tip to remember. So those are things that you can do when the child is feeling more relaxed in your setting, or when you have implemented the ABC strategies, you can start to use some of these things as well. So if you notice that a child is anxious or shy in your setting, I want you to implement the ABC strategies. We need to create a consistent, positive environment to make sure that the child feels safe and more relaxed. And we do that by following the ABC approach. Make sure that nobody is putting pressure on the child to speak, and that includes everybody and anybody who works in school. So anybody from the caretaker to the nursery nurse to the TA to the lollipop lady to the dinner staff. Nobody in school should be putting pressure on that child to speak. So you spreading the word about speaking anxiety or selective mutism is really important to make sure that we're creating that positive, consistent environment that everybody is doing the same thing. And then you could do some gentle investigation with parents about how the child is getting on at home. So is the child speaking at home? Do the parents have concerns about the child's language development? And if you notice that the child is maybe, yes, speaking lots at home, but not in the nursery setting, then you might be thinking about, okay, this could be selective mutism or speaking anxiety. Or if the parents are concerned about the child's language development as well at home, you might be thinking about what to do next. And if you know that all of the advice has been followed, if you followed the ABCs, you've created a positive environment, nobody's putting pressure on the child to speak, and these things have lasted for 1 month, not including the first month, and the child is still appearing to be talking much more at home than at school and at nursery, you need to seek advice from your SENCO, your Special Educational Needs Coordinator, and from speech and language therapy, because the child or young person is going to need some support to help them overcome their difficulties. So the most important thing is to follow the ABC advice, to monitor the child, and if you notice that these difficulties are still occurring for 1 month, not including the first month in a new setting, then please seek advice from external professionals or from your special educational needs coordinator. We have also got some other resources and support that you can access. So the Selective Mutism Resource Manual, 2nd edition by Johnson and Winchins, is the Selective Mutism Bible. It is a key resource for anyone working with young people and children with selective mutism, and something that we would advise all schools to have a copy of, because chances are you're going to be working with a child with who is shy or who has selective mutism at your school. There is also the Selective Mutism Information and Research Association, or SMIRA, and their webpage is on the slides there. And they have got lots and lots of resources for parents and for school staff and for the young people about selective mutism or speaking anxiety. And then there's some other books there that might be useful for you to access if you're working with children with selective mutism, which you can access in your own time. So I think that is near the end of our training today. So those are our references if you would like to research further. The Selective Mutism Resource Manual details are all there. Okay, so all that is left for me to say today is we would love it if you would complete our 2-minute survey to let us know what you thought of today's webinar and the training. The link to the survey is in the description at the bottom of this video if you scroll down. We would really appreciate it if you filled in the form for us, if you watch this video wherever you are in the world, because your feedback means that we can continue to keep making these online workshops freely available. So we are really grateful for your feedback. So we'd really appreciate it if you fill it in. Thank you so much in advance. And then if you live or work in Ealing, you are more than welcome to get in touch with us. We have our advice line, which is open every day, 1 to 4 p.m. You can either contact us by phone or by email, and we will be happy to respond. We can also ring yourselves or parents back with an interpreter. So if you need an interpreter, that is no problems. So we are more than happy to help, and we'd love you to get in touch. We're ready and waiting for you all. Then my last thing to share is if you're looking for any more trainings about speech, language or communication, we have got lots more of our trainings available on our YouTube channel. There's a list of them there, and we also have more to come probably. And if they are also some running on for Ealing, people who live or work in Ealing, they are also some running online on Zoom, other workshops, interactive workshops. And if you are registered on Ealing CPD online, then you can find them there. We also have our Facebook page where we share lots and lots of regular hints and tips, which you can please feel free to give us a like or a follow, and you can find more information on there. But yeah, please enjoy the other trainings available on our YouTube channel now. Really hope you enjoyed today, and thank you very much for listening. See you soon. Bye.